Good morning, students. Am I audible, students?
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, still people are joining. I think people are joining very late. Please make sure that you join on time, students. Okay, in the last class, we were discussing about the context-free grammar definition, and also we saw what is the hierarchy of the languages and grammars. So let us continue with the limitations of regular languages. Regular languages are subset of the context-free languages because we know that more restricted languages and more restricted grammars will be used in regular languages, and it is a subset of CFL. We have seen some problems where we cannot solve using a DFA, or we cannot write the regular expression for that. Like, for example, if I take this language, say L is equal to P power K and followed by Q power K, this means that you should have the equal number of P's and Q's, and at the same time we have the position restriction also, that all the P's should occur the first Q. Okay, and if you take a range for it, maybe you can take, say, K greater than or equal to 0, something like that. Then it is not possible to write the DFA. Why? Because we have a limitation in the DFA that it cannot track and count and make it equal. So it cannot verify that. So that is a problem with this. Similarly, there is another example, say WCWR, where you're going to take some string, say W, and at the end we'll have the reverse of it, and in between you have some symbol, say C. Okay, and this W is constructed using some input alphabet set. Here also we have the same issue, that we have to track the symbols, and that should match actually. So this W and WR, WR is constructed because of W only. So that has to be tracked. Again, this also cannot be handled by DFA due to the memory restrictions. We cannot manage. Okay, but that is possible using the PDA, or we can write the context-free grammar for this. So, if at all it is a regular language, then you'll not be able to write the regular expressions also for it, isn't it? So, what is that we are trying to conclude here? We have to use some grammar and some kind of language which can handle something like the sequence of tokens which is required in parsing. That's why we say we cannot just go with the regular languages, and definitely we depend on the context free languages. So and also you would have seen some examples where it is possible to write the DFA and the corresponding regular expression also can be written. So that is a very restricted pattern, therefore it can be written. So the boundaries also matters, and you'll have to count, and if at all you have to count and then match something, that will be a problem, because you need some memory to track it. Okay, so that is the disadvantage of the regular languages. Therefore we will have to go with the context free languages for our parsing. Okay, so terminologies related to the context free grammars. uh, Students, please mute. Okay, so let us see what is a derivation. You have already learned. Anyway, let me define once again. A derivation is a process of generating sentences by applying the sequence of production rules starting from the start symbol of the grammar. Means you know that G is equal to VTSP. So in that we have a special symbol, say S. We are going to start all our derivations starting from this start symbol, and then we apply series of production rules, and we arrive at the sentence. So all these intermediate stages we can call it as a sentential forms, and finally we arrive at the sentence. Okay, so this sentence is what? This sentence is generated from the given grammar, and also it is present in the language associated with that grammar. So which we call it as L of G. Okay, so if we use this notation, it means that you have 0 or more number of steps involved and we create the sentence. So that is what we are doing in the derivation. So we create a sentence. And there are two types of derivations, a leftmost derivation and the rightmost derivation, where we give the priority for the replacement of the non-terminals. In the leftmost derivation, we always give the priority for the replacement, that is the leftmost non-terminal is replaced first at every derivation step. Similarly, in the rightmost derivation, at every derivation step, the rightmost non-terminal is only replaced first. So this order is maintained and we'll be able to generate the sentence. So due to the nature of derivation, always whenever you use leftmost derivation, you will lead to left sentential form. Similarly, when you go with the rightmost derivation, we get right sentential form. Okay, so that is about the derivation. Okay, coming to the types of parsing, we can have two types of parsing.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Can you put mic little away, ma'am?
Oh, is it okay? Now is it fine? Is it fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. If at all we go with the derivations based on how we derive, we can have the classification of parsers as two types of parsers, that is top down parsers and the bottom up parsers. Okay, so top down is what we start with the start symbol and then we go towards the terminal symbols. That is, we just generate a sentence, and during that process we start from the top and we reach towards the sentence. So that is known as the top down. And there is another type of parsing which is known as the bottom up parsing. So in the bottom up parsing, what happens is we start from the sentence and we go towards the start symbol. So that is the difference, basic difference between the top down and bottom up. So you can observe here, it has started from the start symbol and then we created some sentence, say ba ba ba, and we also track what are the rules that are applied. So that is top down. So similarly, if you start from the sentence, you can go back and reach the start symbol. That becomes the bottom up approach. Okay, till now we have only seen the top down approach because in TOC you have practiced only the derivation process. Okay, but in the bottom up, what we do is we call it as actually reduction process, because we start from the sentence and then we make the replacement in such a way that finally you have to reach the start symbol. And in terms of derivation tree also, if it is top down, then you are going to start from the root node and then you reach till the leaves, and all the leaves should have only the terminal symbols and you read from left to right. Okay, so that is a top down derivation tree. Similarly, for bottom up also, what we do is we start from our sentence, means you are starting from your leaves and then you move towards the root and finally you reach the root with the start symbol. So that's how the difference can be shown between the top down and the bottom up. So that is about the two types. Coming to the challenges in the parsing, so I think you have done a lot of examples in TOC, and the challenge is whenever you have more than one choice for a particular non-terminal, and because you are having alternative RHS, you will have to select which RHS to apply for a given step. Okay, means in a particular step you will have to decide, okay, which is the suitable rule that can be applied. Okay, so it means that whenever you have many alternatives and many combinations, then it is a real challenge for the user to select the production rule and then apply that. Many times what happens, we may select something and then maybe it will not lead to the solution. Then you will have to go back, that is by using the backtracking. So what you'll do is you'll go back one step and see, try to change the decision by applying another rule, and that also doesn't work. Then you'll have to go back one more step and then change the decision and so on. So like that, we will have to see, like that we will have to see various possibilities and then finally we have to arrive at the sentence. So this is a challenging part. And if the grammar is a very good grammar and you don't have much conflicts, then it is easy to handle. But many times we take a grammar where more options will be there and the prefix of these options also similar, then you will have to decide, okay, which is appropriate production rule that can be applied. Okay, so anyways, whatever examples you have studied in TOC is you are not taking any practical example over there. Maybe one or two you would have taken practical examples. Otherwise, you have taken just the grammar where you have practiced the derivation, leftmost derivation and rightmost derivation. But now we are dealing with what? The programming languages, and the grammars are well structured actually. Because it is related to the syntax, definitely we will take care that there is only one possibility for that particular syntax, and we write the grammar in such a way that it is not ambiguous. Okay, and if it is ambiguous also, we have to remove the ambiguity and then use it for our parsing. Okay, so it becomes a little simple rather than taking some random grammar. Maybe we can deal with the grammars which are well structured, and that will be practically it will be useful. Okay, so we have seen the previous example where we had only two rules. That is a very simple example. Now let us concentrate on some little more complex example where it is not a regular language. Okay, means here we need to track the brackets. It is an example of the balanced brackets, and also we can even create the nested brackets, and it is in the proper order also. So if we take that example, then definitely this cannot be specified using the regular grammar, and then we have to go with the context free grammar. So let us write the grammar something like this. Let start be the start symbol, and let us use one non-terminal, say brackets. And in the brackets, what we can have is we can use this brackets recursively, because if I want all kind of brackets, maybe this variable can be used recursively. So let us have all the possibilities, and let us also label the rule numbers as, say, 0, 1, similarly 2, 3 and 4. So we have actually a parenthesis as a brackets, open and close parenthesis. Similarly, the square brackets also we have in the list. And if you want to extend, maybe you can extend for more brackets also. So let us try to derive this particular sentence. So if you have to do this, let us start from the start symbol, and then first step we are going to apply rule number 0, that is brackets. And now you see we are here. We know that the first symbol is what? The open parenthesis. So definitely accordingly we have to select the rule to be applied in the next step. So for this bracket, if I apply only this rule, it will match. Or maybe another possibility is that now the current symbol is open parenthesis. You may also feel that this would be better, right? This or this. But if I take this, what happens? I will stop there only. Means I don't have any option to continue, but my sentence says I have some more brackets to be taken. Therefore, what we do is, this is not a suitable rule that has to be selected at this step. Therefore, what we do is we select this particular rule, that is rule number 1. So rule number 1 we are going to select, and we will select, then we will continue. So now it is that we could cover this open parenthesis, and now next symbol is what? We are expecting the open square bracket. So to get the open square bracket, we have two choices here once again, either this or this, isn't it? That is rule number 2 or rule number 4. So in order to get, you have to see the sentence whether we have some more symbols to be covered. Because I have the third symbol, that is open parenthesis, I know that I cannot stop using this rule number 4. Isn't it? Therefore, what we do is, instead of selecting the rule number 4, we select the rule number 2. So select the rule number 2 and then continue. And now at this stage, so I covered open parenthesis, and then I covered open square bracket. Then also we need another bracket. Therefore, we will have to use the open parenthesis brackets, that is rule number 1 once again. Okay. And if at all we apply that, then for the brackets, now I can terminate, because my sentence says that I am going to terminate here. Therefore, the next possible symbol is the close bracket only, open bracket and then followed by close bracket. So definitely we can terminate using the rule number 3. So it is done. Now this is our derivation. So you know that at every step something need to be applied, and when there are more than one choices, you will have to select what is the appropriate production rule to be applied. Okay, and then finally we arrive at the derivation of the sentence. Um, but if at all you make a wrong decision, then you will have to go back and make the correction and then complete the derivation. So that is how it is done. So this is like how it is created using the steps. Let us also see the tree corresponding to this. This is the tree. So start symbol and then brackets, then open parenthesis brackets. This is recursively called, and then square bracket and so on. So finally, when you read from left to right, the yield of the tree is nothing but your sentence, and that's what we wanted, and that is represented using the derivation tree also. So if you notice here, we have started with the start symbol, that is the root node, and then we have applied each rule, and all the intermediate nodes will represent the non-terminals, and all the leaves they represent the terminal symbols. At any point of time, if you see, all the terminal symbols would be the leaves. So that is the complete derivation tree. Okay, or we can also call it as the parse tree. Why we call it as parse tree? Because it shows every stage at every level how the rule is applied in the sequence. Okay, and finally we get the sentence. This is not possible using the DFA or regular expressions. Why? Because the structure will not help you, and therefore we will have to depend on the context-free grammar and the corresponding derivation tree. Okay, so let us take another example, which you are very much familiar with this example. This is a grammar corresponding to your arithmetic expressions. So from this, you can easily make out that EXPR is a non-terminal, and OP is also non-terminal, and number is a terminal, identifier is a terminal, and all the operators, whatever like plus, minus, star, slash, all these have been named as say plus, minus, times, divide. Okay, and also please note that all these terminal symbols, whatever we are using here, is nothing but the tokens which have been generated from the lexical analysis phase, that is the scanning phase. Okay, so we have got these tokens now, and these tokens only we are using for checking our syntax. Okay, now let us apply the rule and try to derive this particular expression, x minus 2 into y. Okay, so in order to get this, first we are going to start with the expression, which is supposed to be the start symbol, and then we need to apply this rule, of course, because we have to continue with the expression, means we need to apply, this is the only rule. So we apply this, and then comes okay, so whether you want to maintain some order for the replacement or not. If you want to maintain some order, you can go with either leftmost derivation or rightmost derivation. Okay, now let us see how it is derived. So first, this particular non-terminal has been replaced. I know that I want this x, which is supposed to be the identifier from the lexical analysis space, and we use this notation where in the angular bracket we have the category type, which means it is an identifier, and the name of that particular identifier is say x. Okay, when you are deriving, maybe you don't have to show all this, you can just use id and then proceed, not a problem. But here for my discussion, I'm using the same notation. So id comma x, and you're going to write all this, and don't skip anything and show all the steps whenever you are deriving the sentence. So this is done in this step, that is rule number 2 is applied. Then coming to the next step is what? The next possible non-terminal is what? This expression. So we apply for that. Because of our example, we know that we need the star operator also. So in place of expression, what we are going to do is, before that, this operator also we have to replace. So operator is what? According to this sentence, I need minus operator. So I'll be applying the rule number 4. So that is done. So that is the next non-terminal we have replaced. Okay, students, what kind of derivation is used in this example? Can you tell? Is it leftmost or rightmost? Students?
Leftmost.
Yeah, leftmost derivation. Because if you observe, see here also what I did, we replaced expression with this identifier, say x, and in the next step, instead of doing for expression, what we did is we applied the rule for operator. Okay, so definitely we are giving the priority on the non-terminal symbol for the replacement. So it is a leftmost derivation example. So next step is expression operator expression. So you go on like this by replacing at every step, and finally we reach at this whichever is our sentence. Okay, so this is the example for the derivation. Now, what are the things? This I have already covered. I have given the definition of leftmost derivation and the rightmost derivation. The choices also have told. I skip this slide. Now coming to when we take the leftmost derivation and the rightmost derivation, do we really get the same kind of tree or not? You will have to see. Okay, you observe these two examples. The leftmost derivation, which I showed in the previous slide, the same thing is there. And let us take another derivation. Say I use something like this. Okay, so the first step is same, where we applied rule number 0, here also rule number 0. Then we applied rule number 2, here also rule number 2. Suppose here I apply rule number 4, I get something like this. And here when I apply rule number 5, what happens? Rule number 5 is I just take the star operator. Okay, I take the star operator instead of minus operator. Okay, suppose I do this, then I continue my derivation. Okay, this one is definitely the leftmost derivation, and this one, is it rightmost or leftmost? Anyway, answer is there in the slide itself. Is it the rightmost derivation, students? This one, the right side example. Are you convinced? Is it rightmost derivation, students? Are you convinced?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in this right side example, it is actually having the rightmost derivation. And if you observe what I have done first, I have replaced the rightmost non-terminal with y, because according to my sentence, I wanted y here, which is an identifier. So we replace that first. Then I replaced what? A star. Okay, and then what we did, instead of this expression, we replaced with expression of expression, because I need to get the minus sign over there, so I have to use this. Okay, and then again the next rightmost non-terminal is this expression, where we want to take the constant number, so we take that, and so on. Finally I get this. Now when you compare these two examples, what did you feel? Is the answer going to be same, students? You can think and answer. Suppose you take some values, and if you try to substitute and see, is it going to give the same answer or different answer?
Same answer.
Same answer. Okay, suppose I create a derivation tree for this. Maybe you can write and try. Similarly, I create a derivation tree for this. Are they going to be same? Purposely I have taken these examples so that you know the difference. So this I will create a derivation tree. This also I'll create a derivation tree and see whether the structure matches with each other or not. Will it match?
Ma'am, the rightmost derivation is like x minus 2 will be done first and then multiplied by y, no ma'am. That case,
Yes.
answer will differ.
Yes. That's what I am trying to tell. So you understood, no? So what has happened here? Here actually what happens when you create a tree, you will understand better. It will definitely give rise to different answer, because we give the priority for what? We give the priority for x minus 2 first. But in our sentence, what we expect is we wanted to compute 2 into y first, and then we wanted to subtract this from x. That is what we wanted to do it. but due to my derivation, whatever I have shown here, it may lead to different answer based on the priority. So anyway, this notation you are familiar. You started from the start symbol, and then after applying 0 or more number of steps, you could achieve this. Okay. So let us see. This is the derivation tree for the leftmost derivation. This I will not waste much time because you know it very well. I'll proceed with the next slide. For the derivation which I took as a rightmost derivation example, the tree would look like this. The tree would look like this. So you compare these two things. From bottom you see 2 into y is computed first, and then it proceeds like this. Whereas here what happens, first it will compute x minus 2, and then it will multiply with y. Means whatever we wanted, that answer we are not getting using this. Okay. So what I'm trying to tell here is, just because of one rule order changed, you may lead to some other answer. Okay, that's very important. The priority of operators is very important in the derivation. Okay, means in the parsing step, if at all we don't take care of the priority or the precedence of the operators, it may lead to different results. Okay, and let us see why this happened and what is the problem with our grammar or with our tree. Okay, so whenever you find the leftmost and the rightmost derivations for a particular sentence, you may follow different orders like I showed in the previous two slides. It will generate the different answers. So why this is happening? Because I didn't take care in my grammar itself. I didn't take care of the operands properly. I didn't take care of the precedence of the operators. That's why this problem has arisen. Okay, so usually when we evaluate, what we do is always we scan our sentence from left to right, and based on the sentence we will have to see which is having the highest priority, and then we have to continue for the computation. Okay, so generally what we do is we give the highest priority for the parenthesis, whatever is there in the parenthesis. This is the usual notation we use in computer science. So parenthesis is the first priority, then the multiplication and division operation will have the equal priority, and whichever comes first from left to right, so that will be taken first, and then similarly add and subtract will have the same precedence level, and whichever comes first, from left to right, that will be taken first. So that is how it has to be computed, and this compiler cannot do itself. Definitely we have to give the proper order, and that should be taken care in the grammar itself. Okay, so if the grammar is well defined, then everything goes smoothly, and there won't be any confusion in the parsing. So you can't give different meanings for the same expression when it parses. Okay, so that's what we are trying to do. By seeing different derivations, we can conclude that okay, it is whether it is a good grammar or whether it is a bad grammar. Based on that, some changes have to be done in the grammar. Okay, so why do we care about the ambiguity then? Yes, it is very important, because whatever grammar we are using, that only we are using for checking our syntax. So if our grammar itself is not well defined, then everything goes wrong. Somebody may use some statement, some other user may write something else. Whether all can be accepted, that is a question mark. So we should never allow that. Therefore, the ambiguity should not be there in the grammar, because whatever we take here as a grammar, that only same thing we are going to implement it. Okay, therefore we will have to take care of the grammar so that it is well defined, and it should not have multiple meanings. Means it should not have multiple syntaxes. So one syntax is okay, this is the valid syntax, otherwise it has to be the invalid syntax. Therefore we try to remove the ambiguity in the grammar. Okay, in the programming languages, when we design, definitely we have to take care of the ambiguity. Parser cannot do itself. We will have to remove the ambiguity and give the well-defined grammar for parsing. Okay, so this example again, same thing is repeated. You can see definitely the trees are different, and this is using the leftmost and this is using the rightmost. Okay, at this point, I have a question for you students. Suppose I use this as a leftmost derivation where I started with expression of expression, and next step what I did, okay, I applied x and then I applied a minus. Okay. Similarly, if I go with the rightmost derivation, means I start with expression of expression, and this expression for the rightmost derivation, if I use say expression of expression where I take star, so will it be the same tree you are going to get for the rightmost pass tree also? So you know the difference between these two. Okay. Suppose I had applied instead of applying x or minus here, if I had applied for this expression, expression of expression means the rightmost non-terminal I am going to replace first, and next I would apply say y here, and then maybe times, then maybe 2, then maybe minus, and then maybe x. Suppose I had followed that order, still maybe I'll be using the rightmost derivation, and the trees will be same. Okay. But here it is different because the way we have selected the production rules are different. Okay. And now whenever you want to prove some grammar as the ambiguous grammar, what you have to do is you have to either try with two leftmost derivation trees or two rightmost derivation trees. Don't ever try with one leftmost derivation and one rightmost derivation. Maybe it will not lead to the purpose. So, so some cases it may happen that is only the coincidence, but generally what we do is we try with two leftmost derivations and see whether they lead to the same sentence or not. Similarly, you can try with two rightmost derivation trees or two rightmost derivations and see whether they lead to the same sentence or not. So instead of trying with one leftmost and one rightmost, you should have followed with the two leftmost trees and two rightmost trees. Okay. So that is very important for proving the ambiguity. Okay, so what is an ambiguous grammar then? The ambiguous grammar is what? Whenever you have more than one leftmost derivation or rightmost derivation for the same sentence, then it is known as the ambiguous grammar, and we should not be using that directly. Okay, so that also maybe we can handle it by removing the ambiguity. So let us see how it can be removed. Okay, this grammar you're familiar, students. So I am asking, how do we proceed to remove the ambiguity in this particular grammar? This is a very bad grammar, you all know it. How do we proceed? Like, okay, so the current slide, if you see, is it an ambiguous grammar? This one, we have made some changes into the grammar. Okay. Is it okay? This is the ambiguous grammar, and we have made some changes here. Okay, have we removed the ambiguity here? Please notice the difference. So here it is expression of expression. Here it is expression of some value, something we have taken new non-terminal, and it can be value, and this value can be number or identifier, and operator again still plus, minus, times, and divide. These are the things. So to some extent we have solved from this grammar, we have converted into this grammar, and also the language has not changed. It is the same language. Okay, did we solve our problem completely is my question. This is a well-known example. No, you have done it in TOC, isn't it? So did we solve the problem completely in this right side grammar? Students, these are repetitions, right? You can answer, right? Is it a well-defined grammar, this grammar, right side portion grammar? So no answers. Okay, I'll continue anyways. So here what has happened, we could solve our problem to some extent. What was the basic problem? Here for operator, we had both the left operand and the right operand as the same non-terminal. That was a very major problem, and because of that only the ambiguity was there. Okay, so that is resolved now by taking the second operand we have changed into some other non-terminal. It is not the same non-terminal. So if I have to derive now, I am forced to derive. If I use leftmost derivation, then I am forced to replace this first and then whatever we have for that, and then operator and then value. So like that we can go. Let us see how it works now. We take the same example and we will continue expression of a value and so on. Something like this we could create. Okay, but did we resolve for the operators precedence? If I write like this, is it taking the same precedence or different precedence? Students, you have to answer, please be interactive. If I write the grammar like this, is it the same precedence or different precedence? Plus, minus, times and divide.
Same precedence, ma'am.
Okay, so it is having the same precedence. Did we take care of the precedence of the operators then? No, right? Still the problem is not completely solved. Only one problem we have solved, that the repetition of the operands we could change, okay, by introducing one new variable. But that itself is not sufficient. We have to take care some more things. As we increase the number of operators, as we increase the complexity of the grammar and the sentences, then the operator precedence also have to be taken care. So anyway, we could lead to the sentence here, but still the ambiguity may be there. So that maybe I will show it in the next slide later. Before we proceed, let us also take one more example and the definition. I will define formally now. A context-free grammar G is ambiguous if there exists more than one leftmost derivations for the same sentence. Similarly, if there exists more than one rightmost derivation for the same sentence in the language, we would say that it is ambiguous. And if at all you have any confusion, always it is better for you to use the derivation trees and try out, because the structure you can easily make out whether it is the same or different. For you to conclude, it will be very easy. So you can use the derivation trees to prove that some grammar is ambiguous or not by selecting some sentence, and if it is having more than one distinct tree, you can say that the grammar is ambiguous. Okay, so let us take another example where it is a practical example, if then else problem. So let us take the non-terminal as statement, and let us have three choices. If expression then statement is the first RHS, and similarly the second RHS is what we can have the else also. If expression then statement else statement, and any other statements if you want to have, you can put it here. So these are the three options. So if at all we write, again, I think this example also they would have covered in TOC. Okay, let us see whether the same for the same sentence whether we could create two trees or not. Let us see this E1 then else. Okay, so E1 is nothing but the expression 1, expression 2 is E2, and S1 is the statement 1, and S2 is the statement 2. So this is one tree. So if you read from left to right, what did we get? E1, then E2, then S1, else S2. That's what we are getting. Similarly here, the way we have written is here different. You can follow whatever you have learned in TOC, same thing. All the leaves also you can show properly. So if here, if E1, then E2, then S1, else S2. So the sentences are in both we are generating the same sentence, but the tree, if you look at, it is different. If you see the structure, it is different. Okay, means for the same sentence we are able to get two possible trees, and therefore this grammar is also ambiguous grammar. Okay, and this is a well-known problem which is known as dangling else problem, where if you increase the number of else's, still you will have more trouble, and it will have confusion where you are closing the if block and else block. So that becomes a confusion. That is a severe problem in the when you do it in the program, actually, because it may lead to different results. Therefore, whatever you are looking forward for the result, that may not be the correct result. So this has to be handled once again. Okay, means there is some issue with respect to this grammar. So that issue also we need to handle. Means I have shown two examples now. One is that the arithmetic expression problem, and the second one is the if then else problem. Okay, these are the two common problems where we face lot of problems with respect to the ambiguity in the grammar. So let us see what can be done now. Okay, so what can be done without changing the language? We can rewrite the grammar in such a way that the critical points are handled properly, and with that maybe we will be able to generate only one particular tree for any sentence. Okay, so that's what we can try. So in the previous case, what was the problem? We had the common prefix everywhere, that is if expression then statement, and later if you want to continue, maybe you can introduce some new variable, say with else, and then you can continue. So that is one way of solving problem. Like for the first example also, we introduced some non-terminals and then we redefined the rules. Similarly, in this example also, what we can do is we can introduce some new non-terminal and then continue and try to see whether it is ambiguous or not later. Okay, so by introducing this new non-terminal, maybe we will be able to resolve and get the grammar which is well defined. So that is what we are trying to do here. Okay, so let us see how it is derived. I was telling about the conflict, right? So which rule to be applied is a conflict? Means when you have more than one possibility, you will have to decide, okay, which one is the possible solution. So this only will lead to the ambiguity. If you have only one choice, then there won't be any conflict, and only that you'll be applying, and you'll be able to get the answer very clearly. Okay, but whenever you have something like this question mark, which one to apply, which one to go about, then the problem arises. So this need to be resolved. Going back to our same example, what we covered is by introducing the new variable, we saw that to some extent it is okay, but it is not completely okay because we are taking the equal precedence for our operators. So whenever your expression becomes complex, it cannot handle it. It may give rise to the different results. Therefore, we will have to take care of the precedence also. So this is the same example, whatever I told. Now let us see how it can be improved. So all these are repetition. We will see how it can be improved. We will have to give the levels of precedence for our grammar. Okay, now one question, students. You would have noticed already and you have learned this grammar earlier in TOC. If you remember, E is equal to E plus T or E minus T, something like this you would have used, right? Okay, how did you decide that the plus and minus should come, which is very closer to the root or the start symbol? Can we put E is equal to E star T slash E minus, E slash T, something like that? Can we do it? Why not that? Did you think about it when you learned that grammar?
Can you repeat the expression, ma'am? E equals to E star.
E is equal to E star T or E slash T or T. Can I use this when I have plus, minus, star and slash? And you know the precedences of the operators already. Can we do that? And then in the next level, T is equal to T plus F or T minus F or F. Can we do that for our regular kind of operations what we use in our programming languages? Can we do that? And what is the difference?
Ma'am, in the production rules, these plus and minus were characters as far as I remember, just replacements and characters. We haven't done with the parentheses regular expressions. For regular expressions, we particularly put in parentheses whatever we need.
Okay, fine. So it means that you are not aware why did we use E is equal to E plus T or E minus T or T only? You used that directly, right? Without thinking maybe. Okay, there is a reason why we used that. Okay, if you go back and see your TOC problem, maybe you can see later. you would have used E is equal to E plus T or E minus T or T. Maybe in the next level you would have taken T gives T star F or T slash F or F. I don't know whether they have covered. They would have covered, I think, this example. And then finally F gives maybe ID or num, or if at all you wanted to take the parenthesis, you would have expressed it as say E within the parenthesis, something like this. Okay, so we have defined that rules in different levels. That is very, very important, because if you don't define the level properly, then the precedences will not be taken care for the operators. And always remember, students, whichever is having the least priority among the operators which you are using in your grammar, that should come which is very closer to the start symbol. Okay, I will repeat this tip. Whenever you write the grammar, whichever is having the least priority for the operators, those should be closer to the start symbol. In other words, those should be closer to the root node. Okay, means if I take say plus, minus, star, slash, only this much if I take, you know very well that star and slash are having higher precedence than plus and minus. Okay, that is why what we do is plus and minus are having less precedence. So we write the rule as E is equal to E plus T or E minus T or T. So we don't take E star T or E slash T or T. We don't take that. That is the reason. Okay, so whichever is having the least priority, first we take care of that in the first level, and then the next least we will take, then the next least, and so on and so on. So that is what I call it as the levels of precedence. So we need to take care of the levels of precedence. We can't put everything at the same level. It is not going to work. Okay, so for each non-terminal, you will have to define the level of precedence, and the operator should be handled properly to get a well-defined grammar for the particular programming construct. Okay, so that is why the highest priority is what? The parenthesis, and the next priority is what? Multiplication and division. The next priority is what? Addition and subtraction. So when we write the grammar, we write something like this. So have you noticed this is the start symbol, say goal. If you want to use it, you can use it. Otherwise, you can straight away start with expression also. So goal gives expression, and now you see expression is what? Expression plus term, that is E plus T, or expression minus term, that is E minus T or T. Then comes the next level. Okay, this is level 3, this is level 2, and this is level 1. So term gives what? Term into a factor, that is T star F, T slash F, and then F. And then F is what? So these can be put in the same level, not a problem, because this is what we are going to substitute at the end. That becomes the leaf, right? So towards the end only we are going to do. That will have the highest priority actually. And whatever comes in the parenthesis also should be given the highest priority. So they are at level 1. So this is level 1, this is level 2, and this is level 3. But generally we start writing the grammar from here, and we should take care of the least priority operators first, and then the next least, and so on. And also, have you noticed why we have listed plus and minus in the same LHS? For the same LHS, the reason is they have the same priority. So plus and minus are having the same priority. Star and slash are having the same priority. That's why we have listed those rules corresponding to that with the same LHS. That is very important. So these are known as the levels of precedences. If you use the levels of precedences, then it will become a well-defined grammar. And now you can't get the ambiguity in the derivation trees, because my grammar is good enough. So whatever expression you take now, it works well, because I have taken care of the operands first. When I use recursion, it is not creating much problem, except for it is left recursive. Otherwise, it doesn't have much problem here. We have used different operands, and also we have taken care of the precedences of the operators with the level. Okay, so that is very important. And when you create the tree also, you'll have a unique tree now. There is no problem. So if I have to create this tree, say x plus 2 into y, if I have to create, you have only one possible tree now. There is no other possibility. Okay, so this maybe you can try this example. You can try. I think time is up. We can stop here, and we will continue in the next class, students. I'll stop here. Maybe the tree is there in the next slide. We will continue with that in the next class. Okay, any doubts at this stage, maybe you can ask. Otherwise, we can wind up. Thank you, students.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.